Hello everyone, I'd like to provide an introduction to Module 7 when we begin our discussion on long-term financing and long-term debt. And within the context of this conversation, it is important to immediately recall what we talked about last week in our last module where we looked at capital budgeting and how we prioritize our capital expenditures. So that really provided a more macro or general framework for us to look at. And now we begin our discussion on how do we actually begin to pay for those projects. Whereas last week we looked at different strategies, whether it was a pay-as-you-use or pay-as-you-go, or even the hybrid model. Now we're looking at the issuance of bonds, and in particular with local governments, the importance of using reliable securities, bonds, to finance these particular projects. So currently, or typically, local government will issue something known as a current interest bond or a municipal bond. And that's the type of bond where, depending on the amount that's issued, you're usually required to pay back twice as much or maybe 2.5. So your cost ratio isn't what's so bad. So if you issue a bond for obviously $100,000, you're likely to pay back over time $200,000 or even $250,000. And that's the most common issuance or type of bond that's issued. However, over recent times, for a number of reasons, in particular because of the fiscal crisis that many jurisdictions have found themselves in, and the fact that that led them to be in a position where they would not be able to be issued a or a current interest bond. It forced them, in many ways, to move to the issuance of capital appreciation bonds. And capital appreciation bonds, as we discussed in this week's module, provide some benefits, but overall, they're the downside of these bonds are much more significant than their benefits ever could be. And as a result, you'll see later on, we'll discuss the fact that California has really curbed the issuance of these capital appreciation bonds so that while they had been a hot topic probably in 2012, 2013, the actual issuance of these bonds is less likely to occur now, and they do come with much more stringent factors. But it still remains that a number of these type of bonds had been issued, and the adverse impacts or effects that are going to impact jurisdictions, 15, 20 years from now, are still out there and remain to be seen. And it's likely that those jurisdictions that highly relied upon the issuance of capital appreciation bonds will find themselves in a very perilous position. In any event, what I want you to also think about is your fiscal policy paper that's due in a few weeks. And hopefully you've all identified a city or county in California that you're going to do your research on. And I would urge you to also, after identifying that city or county, to begin collecting the comprehensive annual financial reports for the last 5 years for each of those cities. That way you begin your data collection and you have that information ready so that when you begin to do your ratio analysis and actually assess the financial condition of that city or county, you have that information in place. I would also suggest that you go to the Census Bureau's data or website and look at the population of that city or county over the same 5-year period, because that will be used to to calculate some of those ratios that are important in your paper. Another thing, I also suggest that you begin looking at the articles that are assigned for weeks 8 and 9, because that's where we begin to talk more specifically about assessing financial conditions. And while the lectures will cover the ratio analysis in much more detail, I think it's beneficial to have some backdrop and information leading up to those discussions. And what I'll also do is I'll provide some additional reading that's not required, but I think it will be beneficial for your fiscal policy paper. So other than that, if you have any questions, feel free obviously to contact me and let me know, whether it's the this week's module your reflective essay or your homework assignment, and obviously your fiscal policy paper. And be happy to assist you in that regard. All right, thanks a lot.